From Washington, D.C., this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Hena Zuberi. First, the headlines. G20 disappoints on key climate target as eyes turn to Glasgow. Past 7 years are on track to be the warmest on record. American-trained Afghan elite officers joining ISIS-K. Mali demonstrators protest French presence in Mali. Nearly 56% of California's Muslim students feel unsafe or unwelcome at school. Indian Muslims to rebuild 15 mosques destroyed by Hindutva extremists. Our top story tonight. G20 major economies committed on Sunday to limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Yet some leaders warned more was needed to make the UN climate talks in Glasgow over the next 2 weeks a success. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, host of the COP26 summit, said that the pledge from world leaders after 2 days of talks was not enough. He told reporters the commitments were drops in a rapidly warming ocean. G20 nations emit nearly 80% of carbon emissions. US President Joe Biden said the summit made tangible progress on many issues. He made 2 pledges.
Today, I'm announcing 2 further steps. First, I'm allocating additional funding to help American partners, as well as the United States, cut port congestion by slashing red tape and reducing processing times so that ships can get in and out of our ports faster.
President Biden has arrived in Scotland, where the world leaders from G20 will meet for what is described as the last best chance for climate talks. The past 7 years are on track to be the warmest on record. That is according to the latest World Meteorological Organization report released on Sunday. It noted that global sea levels rise have been accelerating since 2013 to a new high in 2021. The WMO's State of Global Climate 2021 provisional report was released on the opening day of United Nations COP26 Climate Change Convention. The summit continues through November 12th in Glasgow, Scotland. The report combines input from multiple UN agencies, national meteorological and hydrological services, as well as scientific experts. It notes that this year witnessed an early temporarily cooling event, but it did not negate or reverse the long-term trend of rising temperatures. Some former members of Afghanistan's US-trained intelligence service and elite military units have enlisted in ISIS-K, which is challenging the Taliban. ISIS-K, or ISIS Khorasan, is the regional affiliate of the extremist group. The Wall Street Journal reports that the number of defectors joining the extremist group is small, but growing. These new ISIS recruits have critical expertise in intelligence gathering and warfare techniques. That could strengthen the group's ability to challenge the Taliban's rule. A former Afghan National Army officer who joined ISIS-K was killed a week ago in a clash with Taliban fighters. Meanwhile, at least 100 ISIS-K fighters surrendered to the Taliban in Afghanistan's eastern province, the main stronghold of the group. Hundreds of protesters took to the streets of Mali's capital, Bamako, to demonstrate against French military presence in the country. They were calling for the total withdrawal of French troops from the West African nation. While the French government claims to be in Mali to fight terrorism from rebel groups, its primary interest is in the country's gold and uranium mines. France also colonized Mali between 1892 and 1960, and it continues to be a dominating force in the country's political landscape. Here is Mohammed Osman Mahamadoun, a member of the National Transition Council. We are here for Mali. We are here to demonstrate our national sovereignty, to remind the whole world that sovereignty belongs to the people and that those who have not understood this must get up to speed today. Because the transition for us today is the result of decades of mismanagement, misgovernance of our country, and bad partnership. And protester Safiyatu Haidara shared these words. I came mainly to support Assimi Goïta, who is also calling for the departure of France. We ask for the extension of the transition not for 5 years, but for 30 years that they have taken to destroy Mali. Let these 30 years be granted to Assimi to save Mali. Indonesia's largest Islamic organization has declared crypto activities haram, or forbidden in Islamic law. After a heated debate, the scholars of Nadwatul Ulama decided on the impermissibility of digital currencies. For a while, Muslim scholars have considered that cryptocurrencies do not represent honest work. They've compared it with gambling and other activities considered to be against Islamic religious law. The group considers digital currencies secured by cryptography as a medium linked to many illicit activities. The non-binding legal opinion is separate from the Jakarta government's announcement that it is not interested in following China's footsteps by banning crypto transactions. Indonesia is the world's largest Muslim country. Israeli police are bulldozing Palestinian graves at the cemetery in Al-Usafiyah, near the entrance to the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in eastern Jerusalem. This is so that they can build a Jewish national park over parts of the centuries-old Bab al-Asbat cemetery. Palestinian mother Ola Nababte, whose son is buried there, said she had to move bones around so that she could reach her son's grave. She was dragged away by Israeli police as she tried to cling to it. Over the past few weeks, videos and images of Palestinians clinging to their family members' graves as Israeli forces arrest, beat, and attempt to forcibly remove them has been widely circulating on social media. The Palestinian Council of Endowments, Islamic Affairs, and Holy Places in Jerusalem condemned the desecration of the graves. Palestinians have been protesting against Israeli excavations in the cemetery. The Jewish National Park is set to open in mid-2022. Jamiat Ulema-e-Hind, India's largest socio-religious Muslim group, will repair mosques and houses of Muslims targeted by Hindutva extremists in Tripura last week. A fact-finding team from the group visited different areas of the northeastern Indian state to assess damage from the attacks. Jamiat said it's seeking permission from the police to visit the most affected parts of the region. The Association for Protection of Civil Rights has said that there have been at least 27 confirmed incidents of mobs attacking mosques, houses, and people in Muslim areas. The rights group said that almost all attacks were carried out by various right-wing groups, including Vishwa Hindu Parishat, or VHP. VHP is part of RSS, the mother organization of India's extremist Hindutva movement. The state's High Court on Friday sought a report from the state government on November 10th on the anti-Muslim attacks. Meanwhile, West Bengal's Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee Sunday accused the government of Prime Minister Narendra Modi of physically attacking those who oppose them in Tripura. In domestic news today, a study published in Nature magazine claims fluvoxamine is a highly effective drug for preventing COVID-19 from turning severe. The drug is widely available and is used to treat mental illness. It reportedly cuts the risk of death from COVID and the need for intensive medical care, according to results of a clinical trial. The drug is taken for conditions including depression and obsessive compulsion disorder. It's also known to dampen immune responses and temper tissue damage. Among study participants who took the drug as directed in the early stages of the disease, COVID-related deaths fell by roughly 90%. The need for intensive COVID-related medical care also fell by roughly 65%, the study showed. NBA player Enes Kanter led a rally at Capitol Hill on Saturday calling on China to stop Uyghur forced labor. He was surrounded by a few hundred Uyghur, Tibetan, and Hong Kong activists. The Boston Celtics Center called on U.S. lawmakers to take tangible steps to end the forced labor and genocide of Uyghurs in China. Kanter urged Congress to pass the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. The US Senate unanimously passed the legislation in July. If approved by the US House and signed into law, it would ensure goods made with forced labor in China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, or occupied East Turkestan, do not enter the US market. It also imposes sanctions related to such forced labor. Beijing denies accusations of both internment camps and forced labor, calling its mass Uyghur internment camps vocational education and training centers. Over 50% of California's Muslim students say they feel unsafe, unwelcome, or uncomfortable in school because of their religious identity. That is according to a survey released Thursday by the California chapter of the Council of American Islamic Relations, or CAIR. The advocacy group said it's the highest percentage of students expressing that sentiment since it began conducting surveys about bullying of Muslim students on campus in 2012. It releases surveys finding every other year. About 700 students responded to the latest survey, which was conducted between January and August. Respondents were from 5th to 12th grade, with most in high school. Most students who took the survey were from the greater Los Angeles area. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment on this issue. So stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Our fellow Americans.
Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans.
And soon, they will be available to everyone.
The science is clear. These vaccines will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
They could save your life.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
That's the first step to ending the pandemic and moving our country forward. It's up to you.
I am what hunger looks like in America. I am an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for the last day of school. Because this may be the last time I'll have lunch. Till September. I am a single father of 2 who works 3 part-time jobs, and that's still not enough to put food on the table. I was created by artificial intelligence from faces of the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger.
Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
They took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back. In our analysis segment today, we'll talk about the safety of Muslim students in public schools. To discuss this with us, we have Amr Shoaibik. He's a civil rights managing attorney for CARE Los Angeles. Thank you so much for being with us today, Brother.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
So CARE has been doing these surveys for several years. I remember I was a California-based mother when they first started in 2012. What were the findings of the survey this year?
Yeah, so we do the survey every 2 years, as you said, starting back in 2012, 2013. And we're kind of looking at the patterns across the years. So this year, there were several key takeaways that were pretty alarming. 5 really big ones that stand out. One was that 47.1% of respondents reported being bullied for being Muslim in the 1.5 year period prior to the global COVID-19 pandemic. That was one of the first big takeaways. And again, this is looking at Muslim students who are aged 11 to 18 years old. It includes, of course, public school students. It includes students who attend non-Muslim private school students as well. The second big takeaway was that 55.73% of all respondents reported feeling unsafe, unwelcome, or uncomfortable at school because of their Muslim identity. And related to that, approximately 20% of those respondents also stated that they had ended up missing school because they felt these feelings of feeling unsafe or unwelcome at school. The third big takeaway was that nearly 1 out of every 3 respondents who wear the hijab reported that their hijab was offensively touched. It was either pulled, tugged at, or removed. And fourth, approximately 1/3 of respondents experienced or witnessed some form of cyberbullying, whether that was directly towards them, whether that was Islamophobic content that was made in general. Nearly 1 in 3 respondents had experienced some sort of cyberbullying. And then last, nearly 1 in 4 respondents reported that an adult at their school had made Islamophobic comments towards them or while in class. This was one of the most striking and alarming rates that we discovered. You know, these adults, these administrators, these educators are responsible ultimately for the well-being of these students, and to find that 1 in 4 of people who responded to our survey had experienced an adult at their school making some kind of Islamophobic comment or teaching some kind of Islamophobic content was particularly alarming. So those are a few of the big takeaways from this year's survey, which we did towards, we collected surveys from the beginning of 2021 to about August 2021.
So what has changed over the past decade? Have these rates increased over the years, or have they decreased?
So specifically, we looked at, from when we last did the report in 2019, published report in 2019, we found that 40% of Muslim students reported that they were bullied for being Muslim. This year, we found that 47.1%. So there has been an increase since our last report. And this is also more than twice the national average of 20%. So far in the most recent trends, yes, we have seen an increase in individuals being bullied. Some of the numbers in terms of cyberbullying have held steady, as well as the Muslim students who wear hijab having experienced some kind of, offensive touching to the hijab. Those numbers have remained fairly consistent as well. So some numbers have seen a slight decrease, but for the most part, most of the numbers are still alarmingly high in terms of the reported bullying and the different types of bullying that these students experience.
And can you give us some examples of the kind of bullying, aside from the touching of the hijab? What are, especially when these administrators and teachers are involved?
Sure. So we had one student report, she was a female student from Orange County, reported that a teacher attacked her in front of the class, not physically, but verbally, saying things like terrorist, you don't belong here, right? This is pretty shocking and alarming from an adult. We also oftentimes will get reports of teachers teaching about things like the anniversary of 9/11 or other geopolitical issues in a way that is Islamophobic or problematic. And it makes these students feel, put in the spotlight and marginalized in a way. Then we also, of course, get experiences reported to us from students who experience other students bullying them. So we had, throughout the survey, we asked students to write kind of in their own words what they have experienced throughout the years. One, student reported that they were constantly called Osama bin Laden. They were told that they look bomb, with a big emphasis on the word bomb. Every time the individual would pass them in the hallway, they would scream Allahu Akbar. Obviously not in a positive way. Oftentimes, too, what we find, and this student reported as well, is that the students will often report these to administrators or the principal, but nothing is frequently done. And this student who had experienced these comments did the same thing. They told principal, they told the administration. However, the school did nothing and told them that they were being dramatic. The student also asked the teacher if she could move away from this student who was making these comments, and the teacher told her no. So this is kind of just an example of the types of bullying that we get reported to us, and the types of bullying that was reported in the survey as well.
So now, when a family experiences this situation, what are CARE's recommendation? What should parents do? What should students do?
Yeah, so parents definitely have to be aware of kind of what their children are going through. They have to build up relationships with their students and look for signs that students are being bullied. Because oftentimes, as a student, it's a very frightening situation to be in. You may not properly report it. So at first, parents need to be aware of what their children are going through, build up relationships with their children, so they understand what is happening in their lives. When it is clear that some kind of bullying has taken place, whether it's the student or whether it's the family, they need to make sure to document everything that occurs. If a student can document the bullying safely with their cell phone, they should. If they can record it, they should. If they, of course, take kind of notes of what happened, take notes of everyone that you reported the incident to, and then that ties into the next step is making sure that the student or the family takes immediate steps to report this to administrators at the school. The school legally has an obligation in California to reply and to investigate the complaints of bullying that the student or the parent make. Again, oftentimes that isn't always the case. So when parents and students do experience these types of things, of course, they can report it to organizations like CareLA and other organizations that can help them through the process and serve either as a legal advocate or just as an advocate in general to make sure that the school is taking these complaints seriously, making sure that the school is investigating these complaints, and making sure that the school is taking proper steps to remedy the incidents of bullying. And if that doesn't work legally in California, students and their parents also have the right to appeal the findings of the school to the California Board of Education, which can also look at the investigation of the school and the response of the school to see if it was legally sufficient. If the Department of Education finds that it was not, then oftentimes they will essentially send back the findings to the school and say, look, you guys did not properly investigate this. You need to take these additional steps to remedy the situation and to further the investigation.
This is absolutely important. As you said, with 57% of students reporting this, do you see the same number of parental or schools doing investigations on this? Where is the disconnect?
In terms of I think oftentimes schools just don't take complaints seriously. I think that's a lot of times where the disconnect comes in. We find a lot of times parents will call us and say, we've told the school this many times. I've called the administrative office 10 times. And I think it's a lack of communication from the schools. It's a lack of taking it seriously. And it's a lack of transparency on their part as well, too, which we've frequently seen.
Well, California is a progressive state. How does this assumption bar progress? Because I see the numbers are rising and, you don't expect this from California.
Yeah, and that's true. I think people think of California, they think of, like you said, a more progressive, a more liberal place. However, that does not, mean that these things don't happen. Related to these kind of issues, we still see hate crimes. We still see hate incidents in California, simply because, the state has that identity It does not mean that these things don't happen. And as the numbers show, these things happen on a quite frequent basis across the state. Our numbers are looking at the state as a whole, and it's showing that, unfortunately, Muslim students, again, continue to experience bullying at much higher rates than the rest of the country. These rates, specifically for Muslim students, though, are reflective of the experiences of Muslim students across the country. So regardless of where Muslim students are, there is a shared experience of this type of bullying and this type of, Islamophobic experiences, unfortunately, that they have to endure and deal with throughout their educational experience.
Well, thank you so much for your time and your work. Love to have you back on.
Thank you again for having me. It was a pleasure.
As you heard, parents need to get involved, keep pushing, keep writing to those schools. Our children are depending on you. That's all from our Washington studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.